Welcome to today's informational webinar for the NIH Common Fund's Precision Medicine with AI, Integrating Imaging with Multimodal Data program, also known as PRIMED AI. Today's informational webinar will cover the development and testing of a Multi-use Frameworks Playbook funding opportunity, which uses the U01 activity code. The full funding opportunity number is RFA-RM-27-011. The due date for this NOFO is October 9th, 2026. My name is Caitlin Browning, and I'm from the Office of Strategic Coordination, the Common Fund. I am on the PRIMED AI program team alongside Dr. Sahana Kuke, also from the NIH Common Fund, Dr. Sangeeta Bhargava from NEI, and Dr. Chris Kandarpa from NIBIB. You'll hear from each of us today as we introduce you to the NIH Common Fund and to the PRIMED AI program. You will also hear from Dr. Carly Sharma from NCATS, who will walk you through the funding opportunity, explain eligibility requirements, and provide guidance on the application process.
Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on new funding opportunities in the NIH Common Fund's PRIMED AI program. My name is Sahana Kuke, and I'm the program leader for PRIMED AI. To start, I'd like to take a few minutes to give you some background on the NIH Common Fund, the program office sponsoring this initiative. The NIH Common Fund was established by Congress in 2004. Its mission is to support bold scientific programs that catalyze discovery across all areas of biomedical and behavioral research. What sets the Common Fund apart from other NIH programs is its scope. Rather than focusing on a single disease or organ system, it invests in research that benefits the entire NIH enterprise and the broader scientific community. Common Fund programs are designed to be novel, transformative, catalytic, goal-driven, and synergistic. In practice, that means they tackle important challenges that no single NIH institute, center, or office could address on its own. These are the kinds of problems where a coordinated NIH-wide effort is truly needed to make meaningful progress. A defining feature of the Common Fund is how it brings people together, both scientifically and administratively. On the scientific side, researchers from many different disciplines provide input that informs the design of new programs. The goal is to make sure that program design reflects the real landscape of the science, not just any one perspective. For PRIMED AI, this included a strategic planning workshop held in March 2025, which brought together over 1,000 subject matter experts, community members, and NIH staff to identify high-priority opportunities and challenges in the field. That input directly shaped how the program was designed. After awards are made and the program launches, funded researchers then participate in interdisciplinary research consortia, working across institutions and specialties toward shared goals. On the management side, leadership and staff from across NIH, from individual institutes, centers, and offices, work together to develop funding opportunities and provide oversight throughout the life of each program. This collaborative approach helps ensure that Common Fund programs are well coordinated and that they have broad institutional support across NIH. Currently, the Common Fund supports more than 20 active programs. Each one is designed to change the trajectory of biomedical research, whether by accelerating emerging science, breaking down barriers that have slowed progress, or supporting high-risk, high-reward ideas that might not fit neatly within a traditional funding mechanism. Previous Common Fund programs have made significant contributions across a wide range of areas, from genome editing and human microbiome research to structural biology, pragmatic clinical trials, biomedical research training, and the creation of AI-ready data resources. These programs have generated new knowledge, tools, and resources that continue to benefit researchers and patients long after the programs themselves have concluded. Today, we are here to introduce the newest addition to this portfolio, the Precision Medicine with AI, Integrating Imaging with Multimodal Data program, or PRIMED AI. PRIMED AI was approved by the NIH Council of Councils in April 2025, and it represents the Common Fund's investment in harnessing the power of artificial intelligence to transform how clinical imaging data is used in patient care. In the remainder of this webinar, we will walk you through the program's goals, structure, and the specific funding opportunities that are now available to you as potential applicants. Let's get started.
I'm Chris Kandarpa, the Director of Research Sciences and Strategic Directions at the National Institute of Biomedical Imaging and Bioengineering. As you just heard, the NIH Common Fund aims to accelerate emerging areas in health-related science and technology. Today, nothing is more in the news than artificial intelligence. Concomitantly, the NIH supports advances in precision clinical medicine. The intersection of these two developments provides the rationale for launching this PRIMED AI project. Having said that, the practice of precision medicine requires a holistic integration of all available patient health data. Clinical imaging has and always will play a central and critical role in modern healthcare. Unfortunately, imaging is used in isolation and seldom included as a data element in current AI models for clinical medicine. Fortunately, advancements in data science offer new opportunities to better integrate clinical imaging and conventional non-imaging health data. Importantly, to be successfully accomplished, these developments must be driven by a team of scientists with expertise in various disciplines. And the governance and best practices of these innovations should be driven by the entire community of stakeholders.
PRIMED AI goal is to support the development and adoption of innovative, reliable, and cost-effective AI-based clinical decision support tools that integrate clinical imaging with other health data to improve care across a wide range of conditions. The PRIMED AI initiatives are organized around 4 key topics, as you can see in this diagram on the right-hand side. The first one is imaging and multimodal data integration, that is to improve access to and integration of clinical images with other health data types. AI algorithm and tool development. This is to develop and refine AI-based tools to support diagnosis, management, and prediction. The third is clinical implementation, that is to test PRIMED AI clinical decision support tools to advance precision medicine approaches. And lastly, trust and coordination. And this is to promote program cohesion, adaptability, scientific rigor, validation, and transparency. The scope of PRIMED AI is that clinical imaging includes any FDA-approved imaging modality used in patient care, such as radiology, ophthalmology, endoscopy, laparoscopy, and dermatology. PRIMED AI projects will use clinical imaging as the foundation and combine it with other multimodal health data, including EHR data, labs, omics, and wearables, to address clinical needs and support precision medicine. The expected deliverables: PRIMED AI will produce innovative and reliable AI-based tools, best practices for integrating imaging and multimodal data in precision medicines, and lastly, durable stakeholder relationships to expand and sustain the field.
The PRIMED AI team has developed 4 sub-goals that iterate on the primary goal and scope just described and underpin the project's funding opportunities. These sub-goals are highlighted in yellow: imaging with multimodality data integration to facilitate access to and integration of clinical images and multimodal data. Highlighted in blue, AI algorithm and tool development to develop and iterate on AI-based algorithms and tools to advance clinical diagnosis, management, and prediction. Highlighted in red, clinical implementation to test primed AI clinical decision support tools and catalyze new precision medicine approaches. And finally, highlighted in green, building trust and ensuring coordination with the primed AI ecosystem through coordinated activities to ensure program and community cohesion, adaptability, scientific validation and rigor, and operational transparency. Diving deeper into the description of notices of funding opportunities, but refraining for now from a description of funding mechanisms, the 5 primed AI NOFAs are: 1. Data to models, academic industrial partnership. Phase 1 during the first 2 years will require demonstration of data integration and interoperability. Phase 2, upon successful completion of Phase 1, will require developing models and testing their performance during these final 3 years. 2, translating models to clinic will require rigorous optimization of multimodal AI models for broad clinical use. Phase 1 will require the development of AI tools which may be built utilizing existing databases. Phase 2 will require the evaluation of model utility in the real world. And to ensure trust and coordination, the 3 NOFOs shown in green boxes are Playbook to create and codify standardized frameworks for the responsible development and use of primed AI models, including data ontology, technical management of data, error mitigation, and preparation for eventual interaction with regulatory agencies. The Logistics Center to administer the entire program and evaluate its performance, provide teaming support, and engage with stakeholder communities. And finally, the Validation Center, which will function coordinating with the Logistics Center to verify, validate, quantify uncertainty, and promote reproducibility of primed AI tools.
All notice of funding opportunities or NOFOs for primed AI will use cooperative agreement mechanism or will be using new activity code. This means that the NIH staff are highly involved and have scientific or programmatic involvement throughout the project. The NIH's role is to support the awardees' activities through scientific partnership, but not to take on a dominant role. The awardee is responsible for the project's overall direction. Playbook NOFO will use the U01 activity code. This code is used for supporting a discrete, specified, circumscribed project to be performed by the named investigator or investigators in an area representing his or her specific interest and competencies. Data to model and model to clinic NOFOs will use UG3-UH3. The UG3-UH3 cooperative agreement involves 2 phases. The UG3 phase for up to 2 years is designed to support a project with specific milestones to be accomplished by the end of the period. The UH3 phase is to provide funding for up to 3 additional years following successful completion of the UG3. The Logistics Center will use the U24 activity code, which is used for projects that are resource-related research projects. It funds large-scale, multidisciplinary infrastructure projects. The Validation Center will use the U54 activity code, which is a specialized center cooperative agreement. This activity code is used for funding large-scale, multi-component research programs designed to address complex, multidisciplinary biomedical problems. A major emphasis of primed AI NOFOs is team science and scientific collaboration.
This table contains key information for all 5 of the primed AI funding opportunities. Applications for the Playbook U01 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-011, are due on October 9th, 2026. Applications for the Data to Model Academic Industrial Partnerships UG3-UH3 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-012, are due on October 19th, 2026. Applications for the Model to Clinic UG3 UH3 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-013, are due on October 19, 2026. Applications for the Validation Center U54 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-014, are due on October 2, 2026. Applications for the Logistics Center U24 opportunity, RFA-RM-27-015, are due on October 2, 2026. All applications are due by 5 p.m. local time of the applicant institution. Learn more about these funding opportunities at commonfund.nih.gov/primed-AI.
Hi, my name is Carly Sharma. I'm a program director at the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences at the NIH, and I'm also the lead for the development and testing of a multi-use frameworks playbook for PRIMED AI NOFO. I'm going to be presenting some important information about this NOFO today, but I do want to note that this is a Common Fund NOFO, and that Common Fund supports projects within the NIH mission and that are not specific to a particular institute or center, but are of relevance to all of them. Now, the purpose of this particular NOFO is to solicit applications for the design, development, and preliminary validation of robust frameworks for the application of multimodal artificial intelligence, or AI, models for clinical use. We plan to fund discrete 2-year projects for development and initial testing of frameworks, which are actionable. We're defining as actionable guidelines, standardized protocols, and/or standardized operating procedures for development and deployment of multimodal clinical decision support tools. Now, these frameworks that are developed through these awards would populate a playbook of frameworks for the PRIMED AI program, but we also expect they'd be more generally used. In general, what we're looking for in terms of the frameworks, we expect them to directly address the PRIMED AI objectives and needs, but also remain flexible enough to enable sufficient extensibility and interoperability for use across a broad spectrum of multimodal biomedical AI applications, both internal and external to the PRIMED AI program. These frameworks should be practical, adapt to the rapidly evolving multimodal health AI landscape, address specific obstacles associated with imaging data in addition to other types of data, and be operational to varying degrees. We do have examples of frameworks listed in the NOFO, but the submissions are not limited to these examples, and you are welcome to submit outside of the examples. Now, we do have some requirements for these frameworks that you do submit. All frameworks developed under this NOFO and the resulting playbook are expected to be shared and adopted by the broader research community and must be designed in such a way as to ensure that this is achievable. When applying frameworks, applicants must understand the dependencies between different types of frameworks and the particular healthcare problem they wish to address and customize the use of the framework accordingly. Applicants must also identify what classes of data and/or models the developed frameworks would apply to and who the target audience is intended to be for the proposed frameworks. And finally, the context and use cases for frameworks, as well as any limitations, really need to be very clear, and this must be included in the final output of the recipient project. Some notes on the budget and timeline. This is a cooperative agreement, and we plan to commit approximately $2 million in FY 2027 to awards. This will allow us to fund 5 awards, but this is, of course, contingent upon availability of funds and receipt of a sufficient number of meritorious applications. Now, application budgets are limited to $300,000 direct costs per year and do need to reflect the actual needs of the proposed project. And these project periods are a maximum of 2 years, and the scope of the proposed project should determine the project period. In terms of what needs to be included in your research plan, specifically related to the frameworks themselves, you will need to include a summary of proposed frameworks to include the area of need, why the frameworks are needed, and how the proposed frameworks would address PRIMED AI objectives and needs, while also remaining flexible enough to use with multimodal biomedical AI both inside and outside the PRIMED AI program. You'll also need to include a description of a comprehensive team for the development of these proposed frameworks to include relevant stakeholders, be they patients, clinicians, software developers, data scientists, regulators, or others, to ensure that frameworks are usable throughout their life cycles by the relevant parties and in appropriate environments. We also want to see a description of the classes of data. That needs to include imaging data and or models the developed frameworks would apply to, and who the target audience is for the developed framework. There needs to be a summary of any potential dependencies between different types of frameworks and the particular healthcare problem they wish to address. And finally, a description of a plan for obtaining user feedback on framework usability and applicability to include iterative rounds of framework updates based on this feedback. Now, we do have a few other key requirements that you will need to address in your research plan. The first being relevant expertise. You need to describe the investigator's expertise in developing AI frameworks. There needs to be a demonstration of the capacity for flexibility within the proposed framework development strategy to account for varying multimodal data, tool type, and clinical environments. We also want to see a management plan. The management plan should describe how the PI will manage the proposed project and who will oversee the day-to-day activities, and also how the management structure will support achievement of the proposed goals and milestones. Now, useful elements of this description include the organization of the proposed project, its management structure, key personnel, and how it will interface with the other Playbook Award recipients and the Validation Center, as well as the PRIMED AI Steering Committee. Now, because this is a cooperative agreement as well as a consortium, you will need to include a consortium collaboration plan. Consistent with achieving the goals of this program, the NIH expects all Playbook Award recipients to collaborate effectively with each other to maximize the chances of overall success of the entire PRIMED AI program, and to also participate in the PRIMED AI consortium. Applicants should briefly describe their plans to work with other Playbook Award recipients, the Logistics Center for Dissemination and Web Portal Inclusion, and the Validation Center to harmonize processes for appropriate development and validation of multimodal AI tools. Cooperative agreements also require a milestone plan. Applicants should define a clear set of goals and timeline for the development of proposed frameworks and metrics that will document progress towards the achievement of the ultimate goals for the PRIMED AI program. This plan must include a Gantt chart of proposed timelines and milestones, as well as a detailed list of all milestones with associated details. Examples include, but are not limited to, milestones that track software development activities, validation timelines for frameworks, or deployment of frameworks for use by the Validation Center. Applications should include plans for critically evaluating and revising these milestones on a regular basis. Now, the number and duration of milestones will depend on the project being proposed, so applicants should include these items for every year as appropriate. Please keep in mind, milestones may be revised at the time of the award and or periodically as described in the terms and conditions of a cooperative agreement. Finally, we do require performance reporting. You need to describe a plan for collection and reporting of quantitative performance metrics to demonstrate the progress of the project. Such metrics can be used to monitor the progress and impact of the program and will be shared with the Logistics Center, which will be responsible for coordinating evaluations across the consortium. Plans will include a mechanism for critical evaluation, and timely revision of these metrics will occur on a regular basis. Now, there are a few things we do not accept for this particular NOFO. Each applicant is required to propose 2 or more distinct frameworks for development. These frameworks should be on 2 separate framework topics rather than 2 methods of addressing the same framework topic. And then, of course, any applications that are proposing frameworks or methods that are duplicative to existing frameworks or are incremental advancements to existing frameworks will be considered of low programmatic relevance, and that could decrease your likelihood of funding. As I mentioned, if you specifically suggest projects that do not propose 2 or more distinct frameworks for development, those projects will not be considered at all and will not be reviewed. If you have scientific questions concerning the relevance of a project to this particular NOFO, please contact odprimed.ad@od.nih.gov. Continuing on this theme, we do have a few specific review criteria that are unique to this particular NOFO. Underneath Factor 1, which is the importance of the research or the significance and innovation, we do expect to evaluate the need for the proposed frameworks and the extent to which the proposed frameworks will benefit the imaging and multimodal AI field towards precision medicine strategies. Under Factor 2, which is the rigor and feasibility factor or approach, We will be evaluating the extent to which the flexibility and usability of the frameworks allows them to be generalizable to various environments and clinical workflows and/or for variable multimodal AI applications. We also plan to evaluate the extent to which dependencies between different types of frameworks are addressed, and the appropriateness of timelines and milestones for the proposed work. Finally, the extent to which the collaboration plan will allow for harmonization of processes for appropriate development and validation of multimodal AI tools utilizing proposed frameworks. Finally, under Factor 3, which is the expertise and resources factor, or the investigators and environment, we will be evaluating the extent to which the proposed team includes relevant expertise for the successful development and utility of proposed frameworks throughout their life cycles, and any past development and adoption of frameworks, and the extent to which the proposed team demonstrates the capacity for flexibility within their framework development strategy to account for varying multimodal data, tool type, and clinical environments. Thank you for your attention, and I encourage you to explore the Common Fund website at commonfund.nih.gov.
Thank you for joining us today for this informational webinar. The PRIMED AI program team plans to host live question and answer sessions in the coming weeks. Details for these events will be posted to our website, commonfund.nih.gov/primed-AI, and distributed through the listserv. If you'd like to subscribe to the listserv, go to go.nih.gov/6E8R. View recorded webinars of the other PRIMED AI funding opportunities at commonfund.nih.gov/primed-AI/webinar. Find answers to frequently asked questions at commonfund.nih.gov/primed-AI/FAQs. Lastly, feel free to contact us with any questions at odprimed-ai@od.nih.gov, where we will match you with the appropriate scientific expertise. Thank you for your attention and for your interest in PRIMED AI.